All right, we're going to go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Lions Board of Trustees for February 19th, 2019. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Sullivan?
Present.
Trustee Drystad?
Present.
Trustee Farrell?
Present.
Trustee Caravis?
Present.
Trustee Waugh?
Present.
Trustee Miller?
Present.
Trustee Browning?
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll take a brief reflective moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
I'll move
Sorry.
for approval of tonight's agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. And the agenda is approved. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Sergeant Christ.
Busy couple weeks in town. To start off with, the Old Man Winter was, I think, last weekend, and it was a really good event. It seems like the venue changes for Laverne Johnson Park worked out really well. We were able to eliminate some traffic flows to make it a lot safer for the pedestrian, the foot runners, and the bicyclists when in and out of town. Couple wrinkles iron out, but didn't even.
Sorry, any questions for Sergeant Christ? Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about your mic. All right, we'll go ahead and turn it over to staff.
Good evening. I'm just presenting the January financials, and like I mentioned to the board, I included, and it's hard to read now, I can see them. It's hard to see them. You know, they look different when you have them, you know, in front of you in the computer, and then now on the screen it looks different. But the purpose of this is just kind of like Barney had suggested, you know, have kind of like a summary of everything, you know, for the whole month of the different funds. So here is just the revenues for the month of January, and it just gives you a better, you know, picture of what each of the funds are contributing. So the next one, I have the same thing with the expenditures for the whole month. So again, it's broken down by each of the funds, and then you just can see, you know, the biggest ones are general fund and the water fund there. And here's our regular, you know, showing the revenues and expenditures. The only two that they show that they were had more expenses than revenue was the general fund and the water fund. Some of the expenses in the general fund were that we paid $20,000 to CIRSA for the property casualty and equipment breakdown. There was a payment of $19,000 to the Regional Transportation District for Lyons portion of the Eco Passes. Another payment to the Boulder County for the January's patrol services, and a payment of $12,000 to Roberts Excavation Corporation, and that was for improvements on the 2nd Avenue and the wastewater treatment plant parking recycling center. On the water fund, there was the expenses were high because we have our a payment of $158,000 for the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority. So just like we have in January, we have our other payment in July, so we'll see the same impact. And here year to date, because we only had January, so it's identical. And then here you just see just by themselves the general fund, like the revenues and the expenses. Again, with the expenditures, it was all that, the different expenses, which I would like to add is everything was within budget. It was something that was budgeted, so it's just showing the regular expenses. Here with electric fund, expenditures were low this month, and the residential sales were up by $12,000 compared to January 2018. Yes.
It looks like we didn't either receive or record yet the charges from meeting.
That's true. Yes. So it probably came in a little later, and I think it's on the unpaid report, but it should be paid. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then with the water fund, again, there we have that loan payment of $158,000. And then just a little observation on the meter water sales, they were up by $5,000 compared to January of last year. On the sanitation fund, expenditures, again, they were low. And there's the revenue.
Does that include the increase that we voted on already for the sanitation fund, or that?
I don't think so. I don't think so yet.
Are you referencing the water?
We increased $4
For
for
sanitation.
sanitation. Does that show up here?
They'll show up the February
The
numbers.
December bills paid in January. Okay.
Yeah.
The water number you were referring to, there was a leak up on Antelope Road that was quite significant, nearly, was it 900,000 gallons? So that is probably where that increased revenue in January.
I was asking about the sanitation fund.
Yeah, but
It's-
sanitation is
So the increase that we
February.
approved already will show up in February.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then the stormwater fund, it has, again, is very low in the expenses, and we're pretty consistent with the last 3 months since we can compare it to January 2018. We started in March of last year. And the Parks and Rec fund is pretty close, like almost break even. They're on the revenue side, they collected $18,000 for camping, parking, and shower revenues all together, all combined. Do you have any questions? I mean, it looked pretty good, right? This month.
Are there other questions regarding the financials? Just a question about the when the numbers will be closed for 2018 and when we can expect the audit this year.
Well, the audit will be in June. That's when the schedule. And we're still working on year-end, journal entries and adjustments with the CPA, the Carl, that is helping us with that.
Will we get the unaudited 2018 reports before the audit, though, just so we
Yes,
can see
yeah.
kind of what the year looked like?
What I mentioned on my email was that we're gonna have a cutoff of February 28 for invoices. So after that, we're gonna make those payments for those invoices, and then you'll have
Unaudited.
So maybe
pre-audited, yeah,
The March, the second meeting in March?
Absolutely.
Okay,
or even before I can send it.
Okay.
Yeah.
great, thank you. All right, turn it over to the administrator.
Some administrative highlights of the last couple of weeks.
As Sergeant Chris said, Old Man Winter really was successful. Best estimate is around 1,500 participants at that event, so that was significant. And we've learned a lot using Laverne Johnson, so next year should be really good for that. Highlight of the week, Summit Housing did go in front of the State Housing Board last week with their request for $4 million of Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds, of which the State Housing Board did unanimously approve for 40 housing units in on Carter Drive in Lions Valley Park. So now they will move forward with their application was submitted for the 4% tax credits as well, which will get decided now this month, as well as trying to get that property closed now that the funding is in place for it. So we are anticipating the public improvements and the single-family homes to move forward over this next few months as soon as they close on the property. And then the 29 multifamily housing units that will be on Tract A will have to go through site development review process with the Planning Commission. And so that will have some more opportunity for public input on the multifamily housing development. So that is excellent news for affordable housing. Habitat for Humanity is finalizing 4 of the 6 units over on Park Street. They expect to get their certificate of occupancy in early March. And there was, just so the board is aware, that was a planned unit development, if you recall, and they did make a couple of adjustments to their footprint that did not get approved before the building occurred, and so now we're going to have to reopen that PUD and reapprove those. We're not going to hold up the certificate of occupancy. It didn't change square footage or anything like that. It was the porch fronts apparently moved slightly. The fire department wanted that involved. So that will be coming back to you, but we are not going to hold up the certificate of occupancy for the 4 units. The middle 2 will be held up until that's done. But the skate park planning, the town hosted a meeting with DHS design team and Team Payne on February 7th. There were about 25 people in attendance. It sounded like it was a really good conversation and input. They do have a follow-up meeting on February 28th from 6 to 7:30 again at Town Hall. And I recently saw the new updated drawings after the February 7th meeting, and it looks awesome. So I'm hopeful that if that group can all agree and it fits within the budget, which it appears it can, we are being told that with the furlough not occurring on February 15th, that we can anticipate we're going to have clearance to start Bone Park Phase 2 in March. So we could have a skate park yet this summer if all moves forward well. Sergeant Chris talked about the modular home deliveries tomorrow. We're hoping that one is fairly smooth on Evans Street. And then the ones on Indian Lookout Road have been changed again. The weather has not been cooperating with those delivery dates going up that hill. So hopefully next week. The wildlife presentation that the town is co-hosting with Western Stars had a really overwhelmingly positive response from the community. The first topic was on mountain lions, and around 150 people attended. And the venue wasn't set up for that many. They were expecting about 25. And so we need to make some accommodations before we start talking about black bears and owls. But it sounds like it's a popular winter education session, which I think is great, especially for new people moving to the area that may not know how to cohabitate with our natural friends.
Was the guy there that killed the lion with his bare
He was
hands?
not there. But I heard he's recuperating well, so that's good. Two other items, unmet needs. This is going to be something that we are going to be talking to the board about over the coming months and prior to the final audit being presented in June, fingers crossed. We are trying to put all of the unmet needs from flood recovery into 3 different buckets. Those that are funded, those that have potential for funding, and those that appear not to have a funding source. So that when we come to talk with the board in June with the audit, that money you've been setting aside, we know if that is going to be adequate for our unmet needs or not. There also appears to be some potential that there may be disaster recovery funding that other communities in the collaborative are not going to be able to spend by December. That will have to then be, the state wants us to spend it. I actually got to talk to Dave Bowman at the State Housing Board meeting. Their concern is that the money we have now hasn't been all the way spent because of delays in construction on the Eastern Corridor, the Apple Valley changes, some of those things. So tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with the collaborative to let them know that if they want to push a couple more million towards Lions, we have a plan to spend it. So all of those unmet needs and that DR funding are going to be winding up over these next 9 months. And we just want to make sure that the board has a really realistic picture moving forward, since all of this will be drug out probably over the next 10 years as FEMA is making decisions and pushing stuff back. And then lastly, I have been invited with the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We've been asked to use Lyons, Colorado as a case study internationally to help the country of Slovenia with their disaster preparedness. And apparently Colorado and Slovenia have a relationship in this area, and we are an ally of theirs. They are an ally of ours, both ways. And so they have asked if I will go with them to Slovenia in April for a week and help them with setting up their, they call it civil relief. It's similar to our FEMA department, and what works well and what doesn't. And so we had a call today, and if the board is up for me representing our town in Slovenia, I would love to go. So the state of Colorado is really excited. They want to use, apparently Slovenia has lots of small villages under 5,000, and then they have one larger community. And so they think that we are a good example to teach their villages on what works and what doesn't work in immediate recovery, midterm recovery, and long-term recovery. So
sounds like a great opportunity.
Yeah, it should be exciting. Is everybody giving me the nod? Yeah. Okay. All right.
I spent 4 days in Bobec, Slovenia last June, and I can give you some recommendations on a good Airbnb and a brew pub.
Oh, well, I think I'll be staying with the Department of Defense folks, apparently. But
I'm sure you can ditch
take you
them for
up on the
one
brew
night.
pub. So that they are having a big meeting on Thursday to make sure everyone's on board, if we can attend and start preparing. But they said Lions will be the case study for the week of what happened locally, regionally, state, and federal. And so I think it's a great opportunity to teach other communities about the process in America anyway. And we're supposed to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, so it'll be interesting.
I'm sure they do a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's all I have for today.
Any questions for staff? Trustee Miller and then Trustee Browning.
I just have a question about some Longs Peak Drive.
Yes.
And the capital improvements up there.
Yes.
Do we have any time frame on that?
If you recall, we were supposed to do engineering in 2018 and then start construction in 2019. The engineering did not occur. It's now on the utility department's radar for this year.
Okay.
To get that identified. It's going to take some temporary access and land negotiations before that can really happen. But I do know both Joe's here, Director of Utilities, and the UAB have it on their radar.
Okay, and is that going to include the stormwater drainage also?
It'll be
all.
It'll be sewer, water, and then the road, which includes some of the storm drainage.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question about the housing. I understand that the, I think it's 11 single-family already platted units can go forward
Yes.
without going through a site and development plan review process. Do you have any estimate of the timing for filing the site and development plan applications on Lot A? You know when that might happen?
Yeah, we meet weekly with them on the phone right now, so they have their list. They have a projected timeline for all of that to occur. They were just waiting for the funding to work out. So that will start as soon as they close on the property. I expect an application to probably be in March to start that process. Their goal would be to be under construction by June on public improvements. They have completed their geotech studies, their traffic analysis, which the town engineer sent back for more detail. They have completed their financial analysis. I haven't gotten to see all of that. I mean, it's their proprietary information at this point. Some of that will come out at the site review. But I expect most of the spring will be spent on site development.
Okay, so that they're initiating of the public improvements, the road, the
Yes.
utilities and stuff. That
Can start right away.
Will that start while the site
Yes.
development review is going on for Lot A?
Yes.
Okay.
Interestingly, when they filed the filing 8, it actually already has the grading plan, the drainage plans, all of those are done. And so they just have to review them and tweak them for driveways and things, that where they're planning to put them. But Mr. Bell already did all that when he platted filing 8.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the town administrator and the mayor pro tem who went to Denver to give a presentation for the housing proposal. And so I know some other citizens from Lyons also went, but you guys, I've heard you did a wonderful job and I appreciate you going down and speaking to the application.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to audience business. This is the portion of the meeting where the public is welcome to come forward and address the board on items of interest that are not on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. We don't have any public hearings scheduled, so pretty much anything is fair game. Each person will have 4 minutes. Come forward, give your name and address for the record, please.
We have 2 assignments.
Okay.
First one's
Mike
Mike.
Whip, 1308 Apple Valley Road. In 1973, the town clerk of Lyons entered into the official record tap book that 501 West Main, known as Riverbend, owns the rights to 31 water taps and supporting water shares. In 2006, 33 years later, the town administrator, with what appears to be very little research, made the determination that this page of the tap book was a mistake and should have been sewer taps, and at some point the page was removed from the tap book. The administrator gave only one reason for this decision, and that reason is not credible. At this time, the town can no longer locate the page. The town keeps no backup record of taps in a secure location. In the fall of 2018, town staff and myself did more than 40 hours of research and found no credible evidence that these taps were anything but water taps. We therefore believe that the former administrator's opinion should be disregarded and the page representing our water taps should be returned to the tap book. This winter, representatives from Riverbend met with the mayor and one trustee to give a presentation of what we had discovered. A few weeks later, we met again, and those two board members and several staff members. After some discussion, the town representative decided they should confer with the town attorney to determine what the next steps should be. At a January 2019 trustees meeting, the board went into executive session to discuss this issue. I was later told that the town's response is, we don't want to be involved. We find this response to be unacceptable. We were also told that even if the evidence shows that we had the right to these taps, the town thinks they may now have other ways to take the taps, either through their interpretation of our MOA or through a statute of limitations. We don't accept this opinion. Our taps were never discussed during the MOA negotiations and are not part of that agreement. We understand that neither ourselves or the current board created this problem. We also are thankful for the board and the time that they dedicate to our community. But the fact remains that these board members competed for the right to make decisions about our community and have a mandate to get involved. In late January, myself and one of my partners met with several town staff members, and they suggested we should request a workshop with the board. We thought that sounded like a good next step, so we asked the staff to request the workshop in the near future. We now learn that the board, instead of a workshop, has decided to go into executive session again. We're here to formally request a workshop with the board and staff, open to the public and press, to put the facts on the table and make sure that all parties have all the information and facts available to help them make their decisions. We cannot disregard the evidence only because it does not support the outcome we desire. We feel closed sessions are not fair to us or the public. We would also welcome an unbiased third party to mitigate this issue. We recognize that these taps represent a great deal of value, and we do not want to cause undue financial burden to our town. We also acknowledge that because of the flood, we will probably never use 31 water taps. We also believe that whatever we use these taps for will have a very positive impact on our community, greater than the value of the taps, such as a hotel. Therefore, we are willing to dedicate many of these taps to the town. Let's get together and make sure we have a win-win outcome to this situation. I can give you copies of this if you'd like to have it.
You can give them to Clark. Thank you.
Thank you. There's several of them. Whoever needs them. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Next is Marilee Sturgis.
Hi, I'm Marilee Sturgis. I live at 217 Welch Drive in Lyons. I just would like to urge the board to adopt the carefully thought out interim weed management plan that was presented to you this evening. If you vote to adopt this plan, the worst outcome might be that we have a few extra dandelions. If you don't adopt this plan, and the town of Lyons continues to spray toxic chemical pesticides on our parks and in our public spaces, we run the risk that the citizens of Lyons and guests to the town of Lyons may get cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which has been directly linked to the use of Roundup. At the very least, it's worth trying out the new plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, we'll go ahead and close audience business. Next item on the agenda is I have a few appointments to make for boards and commissions. First of all, the Planning and Community Planning, I can never remember. Planning Community Development Commission. I knew that. I was on the right track. I always second guess myself. We have 2 members on there who have completed 6 years of service. So Roger Flynn and is a guy named Neil Sullivan I'm remotely familiar with. They were appointed, I believe, by Mayor Van Domelen a while back, and out of some recent advertising about encouraging more citizens to get involved, we've had several candidates come forward for positions on the Planning Commission. So Roger and Neil will be rotating off, and I would like to appoint, if the board has no objection, Holly Rogan and David Hamrick. Holly is I think a newer resident, comes from Boulder, lives over in Old Town neighborhood, and has been very involved in her prior community and some planning efforts. And then David Hamrick is also newer to Lyons, but in the area, came from Longmont, and lives up on Indian Lookout Road, and has some really great prior planning experience from the community he lived in a different state. But I think both of them will bring a lot of new insights and fresh eyes to the things that we're working on. I will put a caveat to it, though, that I don't know where the Planning Commission is with a few things they have been working on. So both of them are open to, if there's anything that's like literally, I know downtown design standards or something like that might be literally one vote or one meeting away from wrapping up, that we time the transition so that we don't throw someone into something that is almost across the finish line and slowing it down. So I think everyone's open to, figuring out what the appropriate timing should be for having those people transition in. So I'll leave that to staff to coordinate on your end. So those are my two appointments. I do want to also thank Betsy Hubner. She resigned this week from the Lyons Arts and Humanities Council. I know but she has given a lot of passion and energy to that group. And, again, thanking Roger and Neil for their commitment to the Planning Commission. They've been very active and very engaged in a lot of really good work over the past couple of years, particularly. So, all right, that's all I have for boards and commissions. All right, next on the agenda, if the clerk would read the items on consent into the record.
We have first reading on ordinance 1051, an ordinance of Lyons, Colorado, approving a lease of town property to 4196 Highway, doing business as Spirit Hounds. Resolution 2019-14 will be to do with the Dave Miller ditch request for an easement and land exchange. Resolution 2019-11 is a resolution of the Town of Lyons ratifying the final amendments to the Dr. Bott Plan. Resolution 2019-12 is a resolution of the Town of Lyons ratifying and accepting the commissioning of a bronze bell sculpture by J.G. Moore, Incorporated, as a permanent piece into the town's public art legacy collection. Resolution 2019-15 is a resolution approving the 8th Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement for the collection of county use tax between Boulder County and the Town of Lyons. Resolution 2019-13 is a resolution of the Town of Lyons in support of the TIP application for the St. Vrain Trail extension and supporting a local funding match. Resolution 2019-17 is a resolution of the Town of Lyons in support of the TIP application for Broadway and supporting a local funding match. Resolution 2019 is a resolution of the Town of Lyons approving a grant amendment with the State of Colorado Department of Natural Resources, Division of Parks and Wildlife, for restoring aquatic habitat in the St. Vrain Creek and Boehm Park. The other is the first reading for Ordinance 1055, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons, amending Section 13-3-9 of the Lyons Municipal Code for the purposes of creating a water rights dedication requirement. Resolution 2019-18 is a resolution of the Town of Lyons accepting a Boulder County Environmental Sustainability Matching Grant Fund for approving a related intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County. The February 2019 accounts payable and the February 4th, 2019 Board of Trustees meeting minutes.
All right, thank you. Would anyone like to pull any of the items on the consent agenda? Trustee Farrell?
I'd like to pull number 2, please.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'd like to pull number 3.
Any others? You.
Number 8, please.
Number 8. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, and just since there's an item on there I will be recusing myself from, I'm going to abstain from this vote. I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Okay, so the motion carries 6-0 with one abstention. All right, next item is general business item number 1. I'll turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Thank you. I don't know if everyone knows Erica Archer. She's our grant manager for flood recovery, and we'll be making the staff presentation tonight on the item regarding the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, recent changes to their elevations policy.
Thank you. So, as most of you, I'm sure, know, the Town of Lyons was awarded a hazard mitigation grant program grant for elevations. It was to elevate 2 properties here in Lyons. Just as a quick overview, there were actually 3 communities within Boulder County who were awarded this grant, and it was to elevate a total of 5 structures. 2 of them, of course, were in Lyons. So what happened over the course of the last couple of years while we've held this grant is that pretty much immediately after the grant was awarded, we were given a memo from FEMA which detailed the cost effectiveness that had to be determined on each structure elevation. Basically, in a nutshell, each project cost for each elevation could not exceed $175,000. As I'm sure you are aware, over the past couple of years, this has been out to bid. Over the course of with the 3 communities that were involved in this grant program, we have put this out to bid a total of 5 times. Several of those times, bids were not received by contractors, and the one time that they were received, it vastly exceeded what our project cost was. It greatly exceeded $175,000. For the project to be considered reasonable and for the benefit cost ratio to equal 1.0, that was their determination, FEMA, that was the cap, $175,000 per structure. So we basically made several attempts at this and ended up closing down the project. This grant ended in August of 2018. Property owners were notified. The reason I'm here today is that we have been recently given new information, a new interpretation from FEMA Region 8, which came to us through DHSEM, Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management, our state representatives over there. And they let us know that FEMA Region 8 has changed their interpretation of the benefit cost reasonableness or benefit cost ratio. In other words, what they are now saying we would be allowed to do would be to allow a local match to be raised above that $175,000 cap. So, for example, if the town paid $175,000 of it, a property owner, for example, might be able to pay above that amount. This was not allowed before. So let's say the project cost $250,000, which is what we were seeing on average come back on the bids. Then the property owner would be responsible for $75,000. Now, the problem, or the risk, I should say, is that this is FEMA Region 8's interpretation. It is not necessarily agreed on by other FEMA regions, and we are under the impression that it may not be concurred with by the OIG, the Office of Inspector General, who, as we all know and fear, will come and audit the town, usually on average 6 years after the closing of these grant awards, when nobody on town staff is left to explain what happened. And as is also well known, the OIG has the power to claw back any FEMA dollars that were given, any federal dollars. We have seen this on many occasions in disasters around the nation where the OIG comes in and makes a different determination from the interpretation of the regional FEMA office, and they will then demand back sometimes millions of dollars from communities. This is the risk that we see. Will they do it? We don't know. Is there a small percentage chance they will do it? Again, we don't know. So the question to the board then is it worth discussing with Department of Homeland Security whether we should consider reopening this grant as they have indicated they would? It would require a new grant agreement for the elevation of these two properties. I guess that is the question to the board. Do you feel that is a risk worth taking?
Trustee Farrell.
What is the status of the two properties in town? What are their feelings at this point, and have they already rebuilt or?
To my knowledge, they have not rebuilt, and they have not been asked what their feelings are yet on this option. This was something the staff felt strongly should come to the board first, whether it was worth the risk to the town, because it is the town that would carry this risk, whether it's worth doing.
It would not be the homeowner's risk, it would be ours.
Okay. Other questions? Discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
And the risk would be the $175,000 for each?
Yes, up to $175,000 per property would be the risk value. So if for example, like I said, with the example of $250,000 project, let's imagine the homeowner put in $75,000 and then the OIG came back later and said that that was not acceptable, it was not an acceptable benefit cost ratio, then they would claw back potentially that $175,000 from the town. The homeowner would not be at risk. The homeowner has already put in the $75,000. They would keep the elevation. For each parcel. 350 total is the risk.
Could you clarify what our prior understanding was of the rule?
Yes, our prior understanding came to us from a memo from FEMA in 2015, and it outlined that benefit cost ratio. And it's a little complicated, but basically it had to be equal or greater to 1. The BCR was considered 1.0. What that broke down to was the cap was that $175,000. That's what they would allot each property, and it could not exceed that. Should it exceed it at all, then it was not an eligible project, and that's why this basically stalled out.
So now the interpretation is that there's no cap, that the homeowner can pay any amount over?
That's correct. That is our understanding. This is what we have been informed via DHSEM that FEMA Region 8 told them.
I'm very suspicious of new guidance along those lines. It's hard to know. I mean, this is one of those things where it's FEMA.
Yep.
We get different direction at different times. And as frustrating as that may be, it's the reality we've been living with. And I understand the staff's recommendation on this is that we should not reopen these grants. So, town attorney or administrator.
Knowing what the estimates were on these properties that are already now going to be almost 2 years old, we don't feel it's an interest or that it's a risk the town can take at this point, knowing that we're going through these other unmet needs lists, and those are totaling nearly $1 million. To add another $350,000 for 2 private properties, we don't feel it's a risk that the board should endeavor, especially because it's a new interpretation of a rule that could again change over the next years, who knows.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there a deadline or timeline associated with the decision?
We've not been given one. However, I will say that we are in process of closing out the HMGP acquisitions program, and I believe that there is a little bit of pressure to also close the elevations if we're not going to go forward.
Okay.
Before September, probably.
September.
Most of them are based on the anniversary.
So my question is, if there were any way of validating or increasing the reliability of this new ruling, if there's not an immediate need to make a final decision that says we're just not going to do it.
I'm sorry, you're asking if
It's
there's a way?
question, if there's a way of, if we had a little bit of time, would there be a way of increasing the reliability of the new rule?
It's an excellent question. I'm not aware of a way to do that because we've seen the memo from FEMA Region 8 allowing this now. We have DHSEM who is basically saying whatever FEMA Region 8 says, we'll go with. So really, I guess it would come down to the OIG, and the OIG would...
Yeah, they won't give you a preliminary or a pre-notice or a pre-decision.
Right. Our understanding is that their interpretation is what the previous memo from FEMA maintained. And there's no way to say whether in 6 years from now, even if the current staff people at OIG concurred with them, there's no way to say they would or not.
Thank you.
Trustee Waugh.
Do you know of any other cities and towns in Region 8 that have made a decision on this and what their decision was?
I'm not aware of another elevations program within FEMA Region 8's jurisdiction, other than the 3 communities within Boulder County, Jamestown, Boulder County, and Lyons. I know Jamestown is not going to go forward.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
There's a couple issues. I mean, were these properties eligible for a buyout originally, and they chose not to pursue it, correct?
Each were in the program and then stepped out of the program.
Okay. And then secondly, we've taken $350,000 and allocated that to other projects already, correct? Or is that, or no?
Yeah,
Is it still earmarked for this?
it's dedicated to elevations. If we don't use it for elevations, it will not be used for anything under the FEMA umbrella.
Okay, so are we leaving, is that money?
Currently is still there, awaiting closeout of elevations.
I see, but it could be moved on to another community that needs it if we don't use it, correct?
No, it's the amount that was in the elevations grant. And
Okay, I'm just confused about the source of the money. Maybe you can explain that.
Do you mean that the money was allocated toward Lyons, and if Lyons...
I was thinking it was in our DR pot and that we had allocated it from the DR funding. That's not the case?
No.
Okay, sorry.
This
I was
is
confused.
This is strictly FEMA, and it is a little confusing because there was a DR component to it.
That's why I'm thinking
as a match.
we matched. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a motion for the board to put on the table?
I don't think we need a motion, just
I
direction.
thought we had something in front of us. I'm sorry. Well, still, I think a motion would be good in this case anytime we're dealing with direction from FEMA funding. So, anyone? Trustee Browning?
I move that we accept the staff's recommendation to not proceed with this possibility and to proceed with closing out the elevations program.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Yeah, I feel like, we've given these property owners a lot of time to decide what they want to do. I think we've researched some of them extensively. So I agree with the motion, so I'm going to vote for it. I'll call for the vote. All right, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have anything that was requested ahead of time for discussion of future agenda items, so I am going to, although I was going to suggest if the board wanted to take under consideration whether we want to put on an agenda to have a discussion about, I'm confused, do we need to have an agenda item to have a discussion about whether we want to have a workshop, or could we do that?
If you want to discuss the item, it needs to be noticed, so yes.
So do we want to schedule a discussion to decide if we want to entertain a workshop based on the audience business request?
Underlined properties?
Yeah. I think we're just saying, do we want to schedule a discussion? So it's just, we're not discussing it.
I won't give an opinion.
We've had, I'll just, do we want to have a discussion about it, I guess, that's the question. Or put it on the agenda for, I'm confused a little bit about what we're doing. Trustee Browning?
If we, my preference would be to proceed with the executive session, and after that, if we determine that a workshop is beneficial, we could always schedule it in the future. I mean, we can do that anytime we want to.
I think they're two separate issues, though.
Yeah.
They're not
related, but
they're not the same issue, though. The request was about the taps.
Yeah, the way this process works, if we're going to talk about that, I'd rather have it where we can discuss it. We can't really discuss it tonight. All we could do is move and vote. So if it's something we want to discuss later, somebody could ask to put it on the agenda, and then it'd be noticed and discussable. But right now, just be a yes or no vote. And
That's correct. We can't, because it's not noticed, we can have a substantive discussion about the merits of the item being placed on a future agenda.
Right, but I'm just saying, do we want to put it on a future agenda to discuss it so that we can, I don't understand our process.
Mayor Sullivan, another option is, as Trustee Browning suggests, waive the executive session. Anyone after that point could request to be placed on the next agenda in which it could be discussed.
But we can't do it now on the agenda item where we discuss what we want to have on a future agenda.
You could without any discussion.
Okay, so just seemed timely since we've all heard the request to say, okay, I will revisit whether someone can explain to me what we're supposed to do during this agenda item. So, okay.
I think it's a standing item on the agenda. So if there were to be a request that was given to the town administrator or to the mayor.
So if it's not on the agenda, so I can just put this on the agenda and we can discuss it next time.
You could.
Right? Okay, we'll do that. Okay. Next is the items removed from consent. So number 2 was pulled by Trustee Farrell. So I'll turn it over to you.
I need just a moment, please.
That's fine.
So I pulled this with the question on page 88. Sorry. Okay, no, so a little farther down.
Which document?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the resolution 2019-14. It's the Miller Ditch request. And then, actually, I'm going to keep going. Let's go down to number 8. And I believe that's on page 125.
Yeah, but which document? 2A1, 2A2, 2A3?
Well, okay, let me.
She has it on the page of the packet.
Right, it's the packet page 125.
One of the last ones.
So we're getting towards within the agreement itself.
Indemnification.
Yeah, so it's a part of the grant of non-exclusive easement and agreement.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I was having a hard time getting to it also. Okay, so number 8 on the indemnification, I'm kind of curious in terms of my concern is a little bit of a liability. Two things that I can envision, and there could be more or not, but I'm worried a little bit about the structure on the river, and I'm drawing a blank on what that particular structure is called. The diversion. So is there a chance that if a tuber or somebody could, in a high water season, potentially get caught in this. The other concern I had was, could there be a scenario where light reflects off of a solar panel and potentially causes a reflection problem for a driver that could cause a car accident? So I'm wondering is there a way to be very specific about our liability in this particular?
So the purpose of the indemnification section that you're pointing out is to protect the town from any liability related to the grantee's use of the easement area.
Mm-hmm.
This is a broad exclusion for any liability. There'd be no situation under which the town would be liable for any of those things you just mentioned.
Okay, so when it says specifically, or any third person as a result of the arising out of or relating to the use or occupancy, so on and so forth. We don't need to maybe be really specific about language, including equipment or structures.
In the version that you see before you, it's any liability, so it covers any situation.
Okay.
And what the third persons, the invitees, the agents, those are all people that are working on behalf of the town, and so it covers all people under which could be a town employee or agent or so on and so forth, and any situation relating to the use of this easement, the town would be covered.
But it doesn't necessarily cover anything where a person would be potentially cause some accident or something happens, then that they could come back to the town and say, I was blinded because of the solar panels and I couldn't see and then I caused an accident.
In this case, the town would be covered, A, from governmental immunity, and B, from the indemnification clause under which the Dave Miller ditch would be responsible for those injuries.
Okay. And we don't have to clarify that at all any further.
I don't know how this could be broader in terms of the scope of the indemnification.
Okay, that was my only question then. Thank you.
Is there a motion? Oh, good. Trustee Garvis.
Thanks.
Since you brought it up, I look at that section, it has bold harmless instead of hold harmless.
Yeah, it should be hold harmless.
I read it a couple times too, I just now saw it.
I believe that's an OCR error when it got converted.
So we can automatically correct that after we take care of our vote. Thank you.
All right, now I'll ask for a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2019-14, the Dave Miller ditch request.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. And it's approved 7-0. Thank you. Next item was Resolution 2019-11. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. These are kind of high-level observations. One, in the cover memo, it referenced yellow highlights, but then when I went through the document, there weren't yellow highlights, so I was confused about what to look for. Then I believed that the bolded phrases and sentences were what we should be looking at. And when I looked at those, there was a mixture of wills and shoulds, and I wasn't sure what the rubric was for where we were wanting to change wills to should and so forth. So I was a little confused at the end about what I was agreeing to, what we were being asked to agree to.
Correct. It was my mistake. I uploaded a file that I thought was the one I saved. I did not save the correct one. I found it this morning after I was alerted to it and didn't get a chance to upload it. In general, where it was said the town needed to do something, those were changed. If it said a secondary trail will have X, Y, and Z, that was more of a definition of what that was, so that will remained. So if it was an action that the town needed to do, where it had a will, it was changed to a should. If it was a definition, that will remained.
So I might be able to give some clarity, because I made that motion, I think, to make the changes
That's
from
correct.
the wills and the should. So I think at the time, number one, we were under a real time crunch to get it approved because the grant required us to accept the plan before the end of the year. So you might remember, we looked at it and sent it back and said, we're going to approve it, but we want these final changes made. And during some recent discussions with Parks and Rec, some people looked at the plan and said, wait a minute, I remember specifically that the board said to change this, and it's not changed in what they were looking at. So it kind of prompted this, someone needs to go back and review the final document, and maybe we need to do a final kind of, this is the plan, the changes we asked for actually did get made, and look at it one final time. And so I was also going to pull this item and say, can you just summarize, if they're brief enough, what those changes were for us? Otherwise, I was going to suggest maybe we should repost it with these changes highlighted to make sure anyone from the public who wanted to review this, since it is a planning document, to make sure that everyone knows what changes we're actually approving tonight.
There are about 80 changes that were made. Substantive, there were about 4.
Yeah.
The one that you were referring to, there was a request for a change in the Martin parcel section. There was a change at the top of the page and a change at the bottom of the page. They made the change at the top of the page correctly. At the bottom of the change, they made the exact same change they made at the top of the page, so they replaced the text inadequately. I went through and checked all of the rest of them because I didn't catch that on my first review, and all of the rest of them were made correctly. So that one removed, said there should be a social trail to the Martin parcel. Removed the actual trail link from the map because that wasn't supposed to be a main dedicated trail. It was supposed to be a loop where you entered from Bone Park as opposed to the road, the County Road 69. So while the text remained, there should be a social trail there. Access should be limited as much as possible.
So, and did you go back and review the minutes, and were you able to go back and find records of the discussion to make sure that the changes were recorded or documented?
I didn't review all the minutes, no. I went for the Martin one, yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. So what's the board's thoughts on this item, moving it forward versus bringing it back one more time with the correct posting? Mayor President?
Well, my thought is that there's not an urgency for this. Is that true?
That's true.
And so, maybe coming back so that it's abundantly clear that, that what we're voting on is presented and noticed, and the public has an opportunity to see it.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue this to the next meeting?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call for the vote. All right, so the item is continued to the March 4th meeting? 4th, okay. Next item is number 8, Trustee Caravas.
On this issue, oh, sorry, thanks. You snap your fingers, then I'll hear it.
What's going on?
It was written in the reports, an additional $36,000 needs to be paid. In the last, what I could find in our notes, it was $12,000 to $15,000. Something changed, and then it said, in the $36,163 is mentioned in the report twice as like, so I just want to clarify, am I missing something? Did I miss something? Did I not find some of my old notes correctly?
This is one of those issues, again, on the funding stream. So it will total 36, but only 12 is from one source.
And that's going to be us?
Yes.
Okay.
We may end up, it may end up writing the check for 36, but the other source will pick up that other 20 gap. It's confusing. We will potentially write a check for up to 36,000, but the, who's the
other
funder?
funding source?
I think it's DR. Is it DR? Who is it? FEMA. Will pick up a part of that. So it is complex and confusing, no doubt.
I just remember our previous discussions was that 12,000 figure, then jumping to 36, and then looking at,
I'll say
it
this.
threw me off. Okay.
Since Tracy's not here to clarify, Joe, do you know it intimately enough?
Yeah, fairly.
Okay, come on in.
The 36,000 is for the things that CPW deemed ineligible. Some of that would be eligible under FEMA.
Okay.
The 12,000, and it may be a little more now as we're working that out, you'll see that at the next board, in your next packet, is to fix the things, and that should be reimbursable under the agreement.
So why don't we just say if it's more than that, we'll bring that back. If it's more than that 12,000 you're expecting. It will be at your next agenda, though, for the CPW, or for the DeFalco change order to this. So we'll clarify it there.
Okay. Then I'll move to, I'll move to approve Resolution 2019-16 at this time.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. And it passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item is any trustee reports? Anyone want to jump in? Trustee Farrell?
So I have a few things, actually. I do want to note that of the resolution that we just passed in the consent agenda about the bronze bell, we have named that the Bell of Renewal. I wanted to give a quick update on a conversation I had with Michael, I don't have his last name in front of me, at CMEX. Clausen, thank you. In regards to the skate park, he was really anxious to talk to me the day after we had the meeting here with the town, and I gave him a full summary of kind of what had happened, and that, there was this addition of a half pipe being added, and I said, one of the numbers that were thrown out were $50,000 to $100,000, and just to see what his response would be, and it was, well, we don't have that. So within his budget. So if we were to really approach them about something that would be more expensive in that range, it would have to go to corporate, and it's not unfeasible, but it would take longer, so on and so forth. So, but his whole point really was, if we do ask CMEX for any funding, we should get very, very specific of what we're asking them to fund. So that's just something to keep in mind as a possibility. So that, and then I had gotten a phone call over the weekend from a man that is heading up the Colorado Women's Classic. And, personally, I'm a big fan of women athletes, and I think with cycling being such an integral part of our community, this just seemed like such a slam dunk. As I got to looking into it, and then I talked to them again this morning, their request for services is very extensive. And so I, basically said that I was going to bring it to the board. We could consider, if we wanted to consider this for something to look at as a possibility, but that I did give her the heads up that a lot of their service requests seemed to be pretty extensive. And so that could be difficult. So I let them know that it's not necessarily without the will, but we might not be able to make that. So anyway, I just wanted to put it out there as a possibility of something should we consider.
So I'm just wondering, typically they would go to town staff and then town staff would present it to us. I don't know if is that the way they should work through the process at this point, or?
That was going to be one of my questions also. They just approached me because my husband's in the community and kind of worked their way into trying to figure out where to go. So,
He's a female cyclist?
what's that?
He's a female cyclist?
Not touching that one. So that's a great question. I didn't know, but I wanted to just bring it up as where's the direction if there is one?
I have seen it.
Initial reactions?
Initial reaction looking at the host communities is very extensive. I don't know what time of year they were looking at. I don't know when it's typically hosted.
Okay.
But I would think that we would have had to have it in our budget and planning, probably a year ahead of time. I certainly, if it's something the board wants to look at for 2020, maybe is an option. But there's, even the basic accommodations for the team, we can't even meet that. It was like what was it, 165 rooms or something. It was like, wow.
So I can address that. That was not even, they knew that wasn't even a possibility. And typically the way they're trying to work that this year is that they actually want to keep one hotel. I think they're trying to stay relatively close on the Front Range so that their cyclists aren't moving to different hotels, that they're actually in one place. So that wasn't going to be a part of the process.
I would guess it's 2 pages of things you must contribute to be a host community. So I guess it would be if the board has a will to entertain it this year, we would want to have them meet with staff ASAP so we could bring back something to you. Otherwise, I would put it out on your radar to look at for next year.
The time frame is late August, I'm guessing, because that's when the USA Pro Challenge was, and as a fan of cycling, I'm assuming it's the same time.
It is.
Yep.
It's actually, it's like the 22nd or the 23rd, so it's a Thursday or a Friday. And it would strictly be within our town. It wouldn't be to Longmont and back. It would be perhaps a Fruit Loop type situation through our main street. So it would be one day total.
August is that. We had one other request for a bicycle race to shut down the highway. What group was that recently that they wanted to shut it down on a Saturday in the middle of summer? And
Can I just tell you that the last cycling race that did that was the single best day of sales we've ever had. We have businesses closing. We have to start looking at these things. It was later. It was, but we still shut down the highway in the fall, leaf peeping season. It's not like any less busy. I'm just saying. Go ahead.
I would just say, if you are going to bring it to us for consideration, even for 2020, that we should start looking at it now. Just from our experience with Power Man, we really need to start early. So.
Well, and even with when delaying a year, nothing happened. So I think if we decide as a board we want it to happen, then we should make sure it happens. So
do you want it as a future agenda item or direction for this year?
If the board is interested, it's really up to staff to look at it and assess it. So I don't know.
Yeah, and Kim isn't even, she's on vacation till the 1st of March.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to actually do something here.
I would just tell them to contact staff.
Okay. I will tell them to contact staff.
Okay. Sounds good. I do want to add one thing on the CEMEX discussion before you get off that topic. Apparently, when we opened our original skate park, the Carlson Skate Park, Oscar Blues was one of the primary funders of that. And Dale Katechis feels really strongly about offering all sorts of outdoor wheels to people. So if we are going to make some requests, and we want to do that in a formal manner for contributions to our new skate plaza, I would like to also, extend maybe that interest letter to several different groups that might have an interest in donating. So, again, I'm not sure how to get board approval to do that or not, but I would be up for making a formal request to both CEMEX and Oscar Blues to see if they have an interest in donating. And what? Oh, and Blue Mountain. There's also on the new designs, there's some very small, it's not significant, but there is some on the outside of the edges, there's like a 30-inch high of some sandstone work as well to make it integrate into the park better. That may also be somewhere else we want to ask some of the local quarries if they would like to contribute. So if we need to fill this $50,000 to $100,000 gap, I think we, I don't know if the skateboard community should spear that, or if you want the town government to, but we're open to that if that's what the board wants us to do.
Go ahead.
My report now?
You're a green light. I'm a green light.
I was for the next report. Should you get ready to say?
I'll say staff doesn't need our permission to ask for money.
Yeah, go for it. We didn't know if we wanted to coordinate it.
No.
If your group is doing that, I don't want to repeat it. I want it just to be coordinated so there's one request going to people.
I would be more than happy to turn this over and not to be the person to coordinate that. But I'm happy to help in any way or attend any meetings necessary.
We would just want the board to know that, so if you run into those representatives or not.
Okay.
I was at the February 7th meeting, and I think the state community that was there was looking forward to seeing what was presented on the 28th, and if whatever's presented indicates a need for some fundraising, I think that group could get involved, and I've been talking to Trustee Farrell about some town funding sources, and maybe you end up with a four-way match or something like that, but I certainly think it's worth exploring, Oscars and CEMEX, and once we see what they present on the 28th and what the cost might be, then that will give us some ideas of what's feasible within the target range. But it's certainly something we've been thinking about and talking about.
So after the 28th, when the amenities are kind of agreed upon?
QEB meeting tomorrow, 4:30 to 6. Ecology Board meeting tomorrow evening, 6:30 to 8:30. And anybody else welcome to join that one with me. The UEB, I guess in the February 4th meeting, there was questions to the UEB about the, I think it was in the meeting minutes, Victoria, about going back to the UEB and making it a goal, do something about the water issue, the water rights. Their answer was pretty much a unison. If you remember our meeting, Joe, was a unison. We did, the board didn't pass it, we failed. They're not touching it again. They offered the solution to fix the loophole with the water. That was it. It's up to us to take care of the rest. Let's see. Oh, and then they added that to the solution was stop giving away shares free, and probably staff needs to put together a purchase plan, as we do with any kind of purchase of materials, and bring it to the board if it's going to be over the amount that staff is allowed to purchase. So that was their response. So they aren't going to look at it again. They also touched on, and Joe, I don't know if staff is fully aware of the 446 Main Street water flow report was out, discussed by the UEB. Let's see, they felt it was the preliminary plan was okay, if I recall correctly, as my notes indicated. They felt requiring a person to buy land in Lyons and to design for 100-year flood flow was kind of out of touch, and more like a 10-year flow through 446 Main Street was more in line with what you should require an owner to do, and that High Street is an issue and has been for a long time, is more a town of Lyons capital improvement project to correct a lot of the water flow. I kind of personally agree. You could drop that street a couple inches, 2 inches, 3 inches, move water instead of using someone's empty lot, one of our empty lots, to drain water off the, what's the name of that basin again? Steamboat Basin. So that's that's kind of one of the recommendations. Is it's a capital improvement project that we need to fix, and working in this field, I guess you're better at it than the engineer, but there's a lot of water on High Street needs to go somewhere, not through the backs of buildings. Just because we haven't required anybody else to fix the problem of the water going through their buildings, we require a new person to do it. They felt that's a pretty large obstacle to put on a new developer to do. So, who?
The new building owner.
This is just the UB. I have no idea. This is just their statements and what they're looking at. So, I do believe the official motion they approved was to recommend town staff to accept plan as conceptual report with concerns noted from the UBB, debris, entrance, and drainage overall, workability of concept. Developer should proceed with developing plan in detail. Passed 5-0. So, do you want to add anything to that? Did I miss anything?
We've already referred it back to them with that recommendation.
Okay. So hopefully they'll come to us with an actual plan to build something there, and we'll see. Anybody want to come to the EAB meeting with me tomorrow? Anybody? Takers? No. Yeah.
He's thinking about it. Well, I don't know what to call them anymore. I'll still call them the Tourism Marketing Group, is meeting on Thursday. And I am working on recruiting some new members for the revolving loan fund because we lost 2. And I think I have 1 on board. And I'll be contacting 2 other people tomorrow. So that's all I have.
The SSC has not met since our last meeting. The subcommittee has been working on the pay-as-you-throw proposal that we discussed at workshop. So you saw the result of what they've been working on. The SFC is hosting the Save Our St. Vrain Valley group for an informational session coming up, I believe, later this week. I believe it's
Thursday, I think.
Thursday, yes, I believe it is, at the Farmat. And that's all I have. I do have one observation based on what Trustee Caravas brought up. I thought with our water share policies, since the emergency motion didn't pass, that it was going to go back to a regular motion that was going to be put on the agenda, so you'd have the pending ordinance doctrine kick in. Is it on here? Did I miss it?
It's on consent.
It's on there. Okay. All right.
Number 9.
All right. Okay. I missed it. Okay.
Okay, so the Goodwill Grant Fund applications are up and on the website. They're due by April 30th. For anybody that would like to apply, if you have a 501c3, feel free. And we had a gentleman from Mental Health Partners at the meeting at Human Services and Aging Commission, met on last Tuesday, and he informed us that they are going to set up an office in Stillwater. Yeah, and they're going to start seeing people half a day, 1 day a week for so hopefully if he has enough people, which I'm sure he will, but we requested a full day. So he's going to talk to his colleagues and see if somebody would be willing to do a whole day. So I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be starting, but it'll be soon. So that's exciting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Question. So how will that get communicated to the community that that's a service that's available?
Human Services, when they're actually here, we'll have an e-blast.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll put an e-blast out.
What's their goal to start?
I'm not sure. It sounded like it was going to be within a month. Yeah.
Great.
So that's all I've got.
The PCDC had an informal kind of workshop to talk about the request related to short-term rental regulation adjustments. and recognizing the need for the accessory dwelling unit ordinance review, because there appear to be some adjustments that need to be made, although no conclusions occurred. And there was some discussion of the 2019 PCDC priorities, which they can present. There's a, yeah. I was a little confused because there was an email canceling the February 25th meeting of the PCDC, which I thought was because of spring break.
It's in March.
Which, that's what I thought, that spring break was in March. So I was just a little confused.
Yeah, the town planner said today, when I inquired about that, he said they canceled both the last meeting in February, or the last workshop in February and March. So the 25th of February and the 25th of March. That's what he said to me today.
I was at the meeting. I remember the 25th of March.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll get confirmation.
That's all. Okay, yeah. But I also wanted to just elaborate a little bit about a takeaway that I had from the Housing Board review, which went very well, and I was certainly delighted with the outcome. But as I was listening through all of the discussion and having reviewed all of the comments, I guess it was about 700 pages. But a couple of common things in there are, I think, important things for the town to realize that we probably ought to embrace and be vigilant about, like traffic, and making sure that we're recognizing issues that may or may not arise from the traffic study. And my understanding is that the town engineer sent the traffic study back since he has experience with that.
Yeah, I sent it back for comment. And the traffic engineer wasn't very receptive, but I don't care.
Right.
He totally had no clue of what's going on in this town.
Well, see, and I think that's important. And I think it's important for people to realize that the town does that sort of thing in these situations. And then, I'm sorry, night skies, yes. Another was, a very common concern was that there would be light pollution, and I think we should take that very seriously and really enforce with Summit that that's something that the town is very concerned about, with the appropriate balance of safety and lighting.
And when we submitted the requirements for a development agreement, the lighting plan and lighting specifications were part of that requirement, so.
Yeah, and again, the reason for bringing it up is just to reinforce the fact that since the town is doing these things, that it should be a part of the communication to the residents throughout town, not just in the immediate area, but throughout town. And then the last one relates to property values. And I did some independent research, probably incomplete, but as thorough as I could do just using the internet, and found that there is a mixture of research associated with property values near an affordable housing development. Some said, well, yeah, it does affect property values, and some said, no, it actually can increase property values, and there's an example actually in Denver in which that actually occurred. The point I would bring up is if you dig a little deeper, the two elements that seem to be associated with it not harming property values are design and maintenance. And I know that Summit is committing to a maintenance program and so forth as part of the arrangement, and the design, at least what I've seen, the buildings are similar in appearance to the structures that are already in Lions Valley Park. But I think that the town should be in the position of reinforcing some of the needs and desires of residents, like these things, and that ought to be a part of our message. And I think, to try to engage the entire town in understanding that it's not just one of these things we're pushing so hard on one thing without considering the feedback from the town.
If you recall, a couple years ago, that the town joined the Boulder County Consortium on affordable housing, and we set goals and value statements. Paul and I reached out to them recently when these comments, so many pages, were submitted. They said they are happy to come and work with us on a public education campaign between now and the time this all comes to fruition, to start publishing a weekly article or hold a session, a roundtable with people to educate them. So we're going to take advantage of that expertise because we're part of this consortium. So you will be seeing some stuff come forward from that arena too.
I think that's really great. I've been hearing, and I think had some conversations with folks kind of knowing this application was going, and they're just, I think they're comparing it to the Bone Park process. And so I did write an article for the Redstone trying to say, here's why these two things are very different and why you probably feel like you're not getting much communication. It's because there really hasn't been any board decision involved with this project. In the few things that have been, we have had some public hearings on. So I think they're just kind of feeling like we're not sharing as much, and because the Bone Park process was such a different process. And we actually put a lot of things out there, and people didn't realize that that was all concept and not any firm plans. It would have had to go through the whole actual development review process had it proceeded through really formal, planning and public hearings. And we just never got that far, but we tried to satisfy that need because there was a vote, because there was a land negotiation. So there were just differences between the two. It was a really hard article to try to write, and I don't think I probably did. I don't know whether it came over as intended or not, but I think that's really great to hear that you have some starting to think about the engagement process of how can we make people feel like they're included in this process, and because it is going to be very different. There aren't going to be as many steps. Potentially. So that's great. I just had a couple things. So Dr. Cog is tomorrow night, so I don't have any update from that. The Metro Mayors is taking up affordable housing as well, so I did volunteer to be part of the subgroup for the Metro Mayors to work on that. I feel like I have a lot of experience to potentially share in terms of things we've tried to do here. Our ADU ordinance is very popular. I've shared it with so many different mayors and different communities who are really trying to understand what works, what doesn't work, and I've gotten really great feedback. So our PCDC should be very proud of that. It's becoming somewhat of a template for other communities to use. I was unfortunately out of town for parks, so I need to catch up with them. I have not heard that they've elected a chair, so I kind of forgot they had a meeting, so I got to work with them on that, but I know they have some new members. And then finally, I just wanted to say, I can't, I know we have this conversation a lot, but the dogs off leash issue over by the dog park is so out of control. I can say I run there probably 4 or 5 times a week, and never do I not run into someone who's got dogs just running. And I'm like, there is a dog park right there. Today it was empty, and there were 2 people running dogs or playing with their dogs in the field outside of the dog park. I don't, and then, one day running around the track, and there are people on the field, at the football field with their dogs playing ball. And I'm like, there is a dog park right there. I don't understand it, and I don't know what we need to do about it. But I almost feel like some enforcement at some point is the only way we're going to change behavior. It's unsafe, and it's, small dog people. I have both a small dog and a big dog. I get it.
It's still everywhere.
It's everywhere in town. That it's just the culture we now have. So
I concur. I see daily as well, and I constantly say to people. I saw a gentleman the other day going onto the football field off leash, and I said, your dog needs to be on a leash, and there's a dog park over there. And he just turned his head and didn't even respond. I know that what I I hear two things. I hear from some of the dog park users that they're like, man, she's out here every day, and why is she out here so much? And then it's just a matter of time and place, because I see it daily too. And so I think what we should do is I'll work with Sergeant Chris to see if we can come up with something as a formal warning system where they take their name, and if that dog's not tagged, maybe they ticket them right there. Start getting the message across that, first of all, your dog is supposed to be licensed. And if not, it needs to be. Maybe we can get that going. Spring is here, and I will be here, and it will get worse. So I'm going to put that down because I see it every day too. And let's see if we can come up with a formal plan of attack.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, just, both as a runner and, I'm literally getting chased by dogs regularly when I try to run through the parks. And it's unpleasant and it's scary sometimes.
It is.
And, some of these dogs are very intimidating, which is still frustrating. Let's
put together a public education campaign as soon as Kim gets back again, and then work with Sergeant Chris on the actual ticketing plan.
I think that would be great.
I was going to ask that, to get Sergeant Chris involved and have him be a little stern about it, because one of Trustee Browning's neighbors a few weeks ago had a dog that people always think just because they open their door, it stays in their yard, they have no fence. It attacked his neighbor and was nipping at his heels. It's another rescue dog that doesn't like people. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple in the neighborhood where I'm at, and I've already had a discussion with my own neighbor. Mm-hmm. I've told him it's going to happen to that dog when I catch her on my property again. Because it's a mean dog and likes to try to kill the foxes. So, yes, a little, and I think, because you put out the e-blast about it, but let's this time be pretty stern about it, that you will lose your dog and you will be ticketed.
Well, I think we'll start with the licensing piece. Stop them
We've already done that.
Well,
your e-blast went out. People know.
No. With animal control, that when she does warn someone, she looks right then and there. If they don't have a tag, you're getting ticketed for not having a tag.
Correct.
And a warning for off leash. She has that number and description then, and can take it step.
And in the e-blast, maybe remind people that fence your yard. Don't just open the door. Leash law means at night, at 12 midnight, you don't open the door and let the dog run around.
Yeah,
unless you have a fence, then you can.
And you don't know, there are invisible fences.
I can guarantee you with these houses, there aren't any invisible fences.
All right.
Mrs. Laverne always gets a laugh when she says there are like 1,000 dogs in Lyons and 50 licenses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
But it is very unfair to the people who every year pay their license, build a fence, and so forth for other people to be able to scoff law.
I agree. Before you leave trustee reports, can I, some of you may be familiar with the term the Intermountain Alliance. Others maybe have never heard of that. There was a recent invitation that I'll pass on to you guys electronically that we were actively involved with the Intermountain Alliance right after the flood. The Intermountain Alliance is the groups of communities that consider themselves mountain towns. So it's Ward and Jamestown and Lyons and Allen's Park and Raymond, and it's all those groups. We apparently haven't been active in the last few years, and so they wanted an invitation for us to return to the table, because they really do look at us as kind of the bigger brother to help them with how do small towns make these things happen, all sorts of issues. But so anyway, there's an invitation for us to return to that monthly meeting, and it's mostly their elected type people. So I don't know if any of you have an interest in serving on the Intermountain Alliance, but they have an invitation for us to return and participate.
Yeah, the group kind of dissolved. It was struggling a little bit, and honestly, the issues that they were bringing up
weren't pertinent.
Well, the right people to be, if they're wanting, I would like to know more about what issues are they wanting to discuss, because the issues that they were bringing up, and I actually had a conversation with JJ about it, because it was really
safety.
It was really a public safety meeting, and it's great for us to listen to that, but ultimately to make anything happen, we would have needed fire department support. to make changes. I mean, it was really about emergency response and that kind of thing. But I don't know what the current, maybe they've moved on to new issues that we could be more helpful with. But
Netherland has a new town administrator, and she's real active, and she reached out to introduce herself and said, we'd like for you guys to get involved. And so I'll pass along to you, but they just met last week, so it'll be another month. But
I mean, well, some of the things were good discussion, about what do you do with your animals if there's a forest fire, where do you evacuate them to? I mean, it would be good information for us to have, but it's like we don't really have the fire department maybe as involved in our community in that way that they do. I mean, they are literally ingrained in the fire department and the government work as one and those kinds of, so it's really interesting. It's just kind of a hard one to navigate. Sure. So, but I think we can consider if somebody's interested. Fun group of people. It's a good group. Really fun group of people, yeah. But
they have another.
Okay. Were there any, I did have one more thing. I just want to let you know I had a nice meeting with Jonah Goose, who's our new representative who replaced Jared Polis, and he's going to be wanting to come to Lyons to do kind of a town hall. He's on a little tour when he's back in town, so we're going to coordinate something. But he's very interested in kind of hearing if there are any issues we want to bring to his attention. So I told him to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't touch our disaster recovery money for a wall. That was what I told him. That's what I mostly want you to make sure it doesn't happen right now. And I'll work on building you a list for when you come to Lyons.
CPW director, holding up for the signature.
Okay. All right.
Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. Are there any action items you want to run through?
So, put the issue with my
Well, I'm going to, we're going to be, we'll discuss it at the next meeting. But that's what I mean, it's a discussion item for the next, right. All right, I don't have executive session paperwork. So take a quick break if you'd like until we go into executive session. I don't know it. I don't know the.
Thanks for
I mean, we're kind of, yeah, that's fine.
I'll second that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor? All right.
We got you,
Just
no problem.
reshuffling anyway. No, there's the whole, I have to read that whole.
Oh, yeah.
I've got, I don't know it off the top of my, I'm getting good at it, I can do it by half reading it, but.
So don't dance?
The motion to go into is just these words right there.
Yeah, that part.
If my wife's watching, I'll be getting a text right away saying, don't you dare. For your family.
So those are bats, I see.
Yeah.
So bat. You have a Batmobile too?
I wish. That would be so cool.
That would be cool. I would catch a ride with you.
What's that?
This dog almost bit somebody this time.
All right, good night.
Yeah, when Steve was coming down with some food about 3-4 weeks ago. Yeah,
Good night.
walking around up the hill was nipping at his heels. Steve was a little concerned. So.
I have to change my route, like, on a regular basis, because I'm like, okay, I'm not running up to German
I looked
Shepherd.
at that
I don't trust them.
They came out right
I've got too many dogs come after me.
sculpture, whatever you want to call it, rock formation and triangle.
Walk around there, probably put the dogs off leash, and then the dog takes out the foxes that live. There's a couple fox dens.
We had a request for a lot of volunteers.
They think it's great. Well, you can just run around.
Right
No.
across from the bank, there's a stone
And Julie.
structure. But it looks like
You know about the same stature, it's not
likely
very big.
way, if not
Big jaw can do a lot of damage pretty quick.
Oh, I got bit by a dog as a kid, so I'm a little bit,
Julie did too.
like, I'm
the
just kind of
artist,
scared. I'm
the
not,
sculptor
I'm good with dogs I know.
is under pressure
But a
to
straight, I
move
won't
it
go,
so
when I'm
that
not
the
running, I don't,
Planning
whatever you do
Management
with somebody's
Commission can
dog
put a
off.
new thing.
I mean, I guess the only thing you could do is do a military run and carry your backpack with a club and a huge bear
When I
spray.
looked at it,
Well, I was running Rocky this morning,
if we
three
got
big
heavy equipment
dogs,
from the
all
town,
off leash. And I'm like,
lift it onto
he's
something,
tiny.
but
I
then-
mean,
Oh, that's,
I'm like,
I
I
don't
just
know where
don't
the
have
other
to
end.
pick him up.
I think I told you, Diesel's pinch collar, the metal one, saved his life. That
It
dog
would not
had to
fit in
drive
the
it,
car,
or he would have crushed his throat.
So I think I may have to just tell
Told my neighbor, I don't want to kill your dog, but.
that we don't have the request.
What's that?
Yeah, it's part of the program of sculptors.
And the dogs are the problem I'm aware of.
There's some.
See, my dog keeps jumping the fence and running around to the neighborhood trying to get in the houses. He's a sweet dog. But I know that I'm having
He broke off the leash one. They were chasing him all over, trying to figure out where he went.
There's actually a plan
In the living room of people's house, playing with their kids and their dog in the living room. She heard all this noise. What's going on? There's someone playing with them in the living room. It's like she brought him up, she heard a
they're
scream.
required
He
to
broke
move
off.
it upon
Yeah, it was snapped.
So
I mean, that's
sometimes
why that
that
happens. Oh, that happens.
request. So that's why
Not,
she,
not every
and then
week.
I guess
I
Melissa
see the light go on down below. I know we let the dog out, I'm down with
Suggested
diesel.
some
Oh, the dog here is just gonna run up here, it's gonna be mean.
doesn't,
All
I don't know.
Rocky can fit through our fence, like,
Because
oh,
it has to be taken to a
so I
place
go out there
way
halftime,
Like,
so I
all the
get out
way
there.
up.
Is there a motion to go into executive session? Oh, sorry, thanks.
I move to go into executive session pursuant to CRS Sections 24.6, 402.4B for receiving legal advice on specific legal questions from the town attorney regarding potential litigation against Lions Properties LLC to enforce a memorandum of agreement. I further move to adjourn the board meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote. Okay, we're at 5-0. He's going to take care of the